Well, hello and welcome to Think Good Conversations. I'm your host, Deb Cummins Stellato. And as always, I'm excited that you decide to tune into this channel to hear about something that will inspire you to think good and think differently. Tonight, I'm taking a little bit of a detour on our usual content to introduce you to a new feature of this show, which is a book review, a book topic, a book conversation. So, as many of you know, we have a free community program called the Think Courageously Book Club. And for the month of February, our book was Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And this is an incredible body of work, as most of Brené's work is. She is a PhD. She has done tons of research and data analysis on topics like guilt and shame. But in this book, she and her team surveyed over 7,000 people over the course of 5 years. And what she found was that her team was able to articulate that on an average, people can identify only 3 emotions as they are actually feeling them: happiness, sadness, and anger. And so, what she did was she did a deep dive and she created this incredible book called Atlas of the Heart, which is called, the subtitle is Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience. The graphic on the book is pretty cool and pretty complex. And its subtext is, we are the map makers and the travelers. And so when I think of thinking good and thinking courageously, we always are tying in the concepts of compassion and courage. And our communities and the places that we show up in Think Good are very much committed to committing to meaningful relationships and belonging, connection, belonging. And certainly, we are committed to creating compassionate and courageous cultures at work. And so, we talked about this book. There were about a dozen women on this call to talk about this book. And we talked a little bit about how we approach the book. And I thought this part of the conversation was incredibly interesting because every other book we've ever read in the Think Courageously community has definitely been a book that you would start with the first chapter and proceed as follows. But people approach this book in all different ways. This is not a book that you can binge on. So if you're looking for a quick read or a beach book, this is not the book. Because what Brené has done in this book is she has basically mapped out these emotions in what are called the places we go. The places we go. So, for example, some of the chapters are called places we go when things are uncertain and too much, places we go when we compare, places we go when things don't go as planned, places we go when it's beyond us. And this is all the places we go emotionally in these categories. So what I found was that most of the women on the call did read a chapter or a place at a time. And after much resistance, we decided collectively that we were going to mark up our books because it would provide for a more fruitful conversation. So again, some people went, from the beginning to the end. But with this book, I decided to approach it a little bit differently. And I would just I would take the book, I'll do this tonight, and I would just open it to a page. And I would read from there. So this chapter is called Places We Go When We Compare. And the emotional adventure is around words like comparison, admiration, reverence, envy, jealousy, resentment, schadenfreude, and freudenfreude, 2 German words that I had never heard of, but were very impactful for me actually in this read. So we began our conversation talking about the way we approached the book, the notes that we took, the way we mapped this out in our own minds. And then we spent a lot of time talking about why this book was so important in terms of us thinking good and thinking courageously. And what we really came to was that one of the quotes Brené Brown uses in this book was so powerful to absorb, which is that connections are the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, and when they give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. As I read this quote, I see so much of what my intention has been around the Think Good company and around creating and igniting compassion and courage in compassionate organizations. Because I really think for us to show up as compassionate leaders, we need to have what Brene describes as emotional agility. And where she starts in this conversation has to do with our ability to know ourselves first. She talks about connection with others can only be as deep as our connection with ourselves. And I think that totally underlines something that we talk about every day in every conversation. Uh, we've talked about it here on this channel, the importance of building a relationship, but first of all, building self awareness. When we start with knowing ourselves, we are able to lead others with so much grace and so much intention. And so, what this book encourages us to do is to really practice emotional literacy and emotional agility. And I think this is so important as we come on to the other side of COVID, because what we also talked about in this book club was the fact that many of us have been numbed over the last 2 years to our emotional um, mindset. We are sort of numbed down. You know, we can get dumbed down or we can get numbed down. And I think we have all numbed ourselves to the pain that has come out of 2 years of isolation. And many of us might even be experiencing a change in our own emotional intelligence, our own emotional literacy, because we haven't experienced people in real time in such a long time. And I think what the beauty of this book is, and what we talked about throughout this book, is really how to practice connection. And what I'm going to encourage you to do as you move forward and think about this book is to consider how you're holding space for others to explore their own emotional literacy and agility. Sometimes we think that our role of leaders is offering a lifeline and asking people how we can help them. And I think what this book brought up for many of us is the importance of just being present with other people, being present in conversations, and allow people to gain clarity around their own emotions. Um, to really understand others and where they're feeling is really about a very simple concept. How do we find out how others are feeling? We stop making stuff up, we stop making judgments, we stop making assumptions, and we start asking them, how are you? How are you feeling? And what can I do to support you? And that's really different than just having a fix it mindset. This is an opportunity to connect with people in very robust ways. So I cannot recommend this book enough. If you're interested in hearing more about the Think Courageously Book Club, join us on Facebook at Think Courageously. And we're actually going to be doing a second conversation on this topic, because what I would love to know is what emotions resonated with people, what emotions were new to people, and what emotions might people want to explore more. So if you want to take some action, which we challenge you to do and Think Good, join the book club, and also share your observations in the comments of this video about your self awareness and how that applies to thinking good and thinking agilely with agility and thinking courageously. Can't wait to hear from you. Take care and have a great night.